You have been told your whole life that you think too much. You have been told to stop over-analyzing, to just decide, to let it go. And every time someone says that to you, you nod. You agree. And then you go home and spend the next 3 hours thinking about the conversation you just had about how you think too much. The irony is not lost on you. But here's what nobody has told you. What looks like a broken thought process from the outside is actually a very specific neurological pattern. And once you understand what is actually happening in your brain, the self-blame starts to look a lot less justified. Today we are going to look at the science of the chronic overthinker, not to diagnose you, not to give you a breathing exercise, but to finally explain why your brain does this and what it actually means about the kind of mind you have. Let's start with the hardware. Your brain has a network called the default mode network. Most people's brains activate this network when they are doing nothing. It is the mental screensaver. It wanders, it daydreams, it rests. But in chronic overthinkers, something different happens. Research shows the default mode network stays unusually active even when you are trying to focus on something else. It does not switch off cleanly. It keeps running in the background like an app you forgot to close. And it keeps pulling your attention back to unresolved problems, past conversations, and future scenarios that haven't happened yet. Neuroscientists call this ruminative thinking, but that word makes it sound like a bad habit, like something you chose. It isn't. It is your brain's threat detection system running at a higher sensitivity than average. It is not looking for rest. It is looking for resolution. Think of it like a smoke alarm. Most people have a smoke alarm that goes off when there is actual smoke. It does the job. It goes quiet when the smoke clears. Your alarm is calibrated differently. It goes off at the first faint smell of something that could theoretically become smoke. It is more sensitive. It catches things earlier, and it does not stop until it has found an explanation for every possible source. That is not a broken alarm. That is a more sophisticated one. The problem is not the sensitivity. The problem is that you have been living in a world that keeps telling you your alarm is too loud. Now here is where it gets interesting. There is a second system involved. Psychologists call it the Metacognitive Monitoring System. This is the part of your brain that watches your own thinking. It is your internal observer. Most people have a quiet one. Yours is running a commentary. Not only are you thinking about the situation, you are simultaneously thinking about how you are thinking about it. You are watching yourself from one floor up, and then watching yourself. It is recursive. It compounds. This is why you can spend 40 minutes deciding what to eat for lunch. It is not indecision. It is a hyperactive quality control system that refuses to sign off until every variable has been reviewed. And here is the part that most advice completely misses. This system exists for a reason. In high-stakes environments, medicine, law, engineering, creative work, relationships, the ability to hold multiple scenarios in your mind at once, to play out consequences before acting, to catch the flaw before it becomes a problem, that is not a liability. That is precision. The surgeon who runs through every possible complication before the first cut. The architect who cannot sleep because she keeps finding structural weaknesses in the design. The parent who has already mentally rehearsed every version of the difficult conversation they need to have with their child. These are overthinkers, and their thoroughness is not a flaw in their performance. It is the source of it. The problem is not the thinking. The problem is when the thinking has no container. When your brain has nowhere to put its conclusions, it keeps looping. It keeps returning to the same corridors because it has not been told the door is closed. The loop is not a sign that the problem is unsolvable. It is a sign that your brain does not yet believe it is safe to stop. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik Effect. Your brain has a built-in bias toward unfinished tasks. It keeps those tasks mentally active, almost like a notification that will not go away until you engage with it. The loop is not madness. It is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do, flagging an open file. The prescription, then, is not to think less. It is to give the thinking somewhere to land. When the loop starts, when you are replaying the same conversation for the 4th time or catastrophizing about a scenario that is 3 months away, your brain does not need to be silenced. It needs to be heard. Write it down. Not in a journal therapy kind of way, in a practical, direct way. What is the actual concern? What is the worst realistic outcome? What is the one thing that would make this feel resolved? The moment you externalize the thought, the alarm gets quieter because your brain now knows it has been logged. The file is no longer open. It has been moved from your working memory, which is small and fragile, to an external system that will hold it without draining you. This is not a cure. Your default mode network will still be more active than most people's. That is biology. But you can work with it instead of against it. And here is the reframe I want you to carry with you. Every person you admire for their depth, the writer who sees what others miss, the friend who always knows what to say, the leader who anticipated the problem before it happened, is almost certainly someone whose brain does not easily switch off. The thing that makes life harder for you is inseparable from the thing that makes you good. You do not need a quieter brain. You need a smarter relationship with the one you have. Stop apologizing for the thinking. Start building the container, because the world does not need more people who react quickly and move on. It needs more people who stay with a problem long enough to actually understand it. That is you. That has always been you. The diagnosis was never that you think too much. The diagnosis is that nobody ever taught you what to do with a mind like yours. Now you know. And if the idea of an overactive default mode network sounds familiar, if you recognize your brain in what we talked about today, there is a good chance you also struggle with a particular kind of emotional pattern, one that quietly runs in the background of every relationship you have, shaping who you get close to and who you keep at a distance.